everybody, it's Angel from Halo Inspirations. We give you inspirations to help you spread beauty and joy through your quilting journey. Happy hump day to you. Happy Wednesday to each of you. This week is I'm doing this kind of thing in a two-part. This Wednesday, today, we are going to be talking about marking utensils for your labels, okay? And so what I have done is I've got 3 different types. I've put them all on this piece of fabric. And the first one, and I'll throw a picture up here, is called Marvie's fabric marker. And it's on the first one. Now I will say it comes out a little bit light in my opinion, but apparently if you let it dry, you can reapply lightly several layers. Okay, so that was the first one, and apparently you don't have to heat press it. It's non-toxic, heat set, excuse me. It's chlorine resistant, it's permanent. It did dry quickly. It does say it dries quickly, and it did, and it doesn't smell. Okay, and it doesn't. I'm testing this as we go, so I'm giving you my opinions here. The second block here, and I'll throw a picture up of this sheet so that we can talk about it again later anyway, but the second block I've done is the Tulip fabric paints. And I've got all sorts of colors, and it's pretty cool, but I will tell you, it says to apply on pre-washed fabric, but when we do labels, we don't. So I'm testing it, okay? And I will tell you, it does penetrate the fabric really well. So you need to, with all of them, I would just make sure to keep something underneath to protect your surface. But that one for sure, it really penetrates deep into those fibers. And it says that it dries quickly. It didn't. It was sort of dry an hour later. I mean, I guess quickly is relative, right? Well, it probably took a good 2 hours before it was really dry. And again, it doesn't say anything about heat setting, but I did with all of these because I would. Okay, so, but the colors are really pretty right now. And it was very easy to use. It's definitely a paint and not a marker. The last one, oh, and it doesn't smell. Another important key part. The last one, I have a lot of people talk to me about using Sharpies on their labels. And so I've got a black and a red and a blue, and they're the fine point because everybody was stressing that the fine point is definitely where you want to go because you don't want it to smudge. I guess the regular point on it will bleed, but I have the black, the red, and the blue, and that's the bottom one with the little flower in there, okay, with colors in it. And I did heat set it, even though it doesn't say you have to, but and it dried quick, so that was a bonus, but it smells. So, I mean, it's a Sharpie. We all know how Sharpies are. So, what is the next step? So, what I'm going to do, and if you notice, I do have 2 more squares. And like I said, I'm going to throw a picture up so you can actually see this. But I got 2 squares after each one, or a square after each one of the first squares. And I'm just going to repeat what I did after 5 washes. Okay. So I'm going to put numbers on each one of these in black next to, so I remember what number I'm on. So it'll say 4, 3, 2, 1, okay? Or maybe 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Maybe I should do that. And then after the 5th one, I'm going to repeat what I did with each of those things so we can actually compare and contrast if there's any fading, if there's any lack in color, any bleeding that happened in the wash. Now, I will tell you, I debated on what setting to wash this in, and I have decided that most of the time people are washing with cold But I think I'm going to go ahead and wash it like that medium setting, like it's not cold, but it's not hot and not warm either. It's just like a loop temperature. So I guess it's more cool, but that's how I wash my quilts. No, I'm going to go ahead and do cold. Most of us do cold. I'm going to use this in cold. I'm definitely nothing else in there. I'm just going to throw it in the wash. I am going to use detergent because some of us do use detergents with our quilts. And then after each one, I'll dry it for a little bit because that is going to have an effect. I'm not going to do a hang dry because that'll take forever, right? I'm going to put it on low setting because if some of us do dry our quilts, we do it in a lower setting. So I'm going to go through 5 times, repeat, so we can compare and contrast what I did in the first block with each of these markers. And that way we can see how these things hold up because it's going to be on a label on your quilt, right? So I'm going to go get this done. And when I get through all 5 washings and I recolor, I'm going to bring you in closer so you can actually see the finished product and be able to compare and contrast very easily so you can see that. So I am going to go get this done, guys, and I'll see you all in hours. But for you, it'll be seconds. So let's take a look at this. So what do we have? So this was the Marvie fabric marker, and this is 5 washes later. So you can actually see that it has faded just a little bit there. Yes, my handwriting isn't as pretty as the first time. Then we have, I've got all kinds of stuff here. Then we have the Tulip fabric paint, and I gotta say, there's a little bit, this is the one that was 5 washes later, this is the one I just did, and yeah, there's a little bit of fading, but it is not bad. The question would be, is if I put in a color catcher, I wonder if it'll pull some of that out. But this held up really, really well. So this I just did, and this is the one that's been washed. It looks like there's some bleeding, but I think it's where I crossed over with some green into the yellows and etc., etc. Because I did it here too when it's fresh. So I'm not sure how much the green or the blue bleeds, but as far as the black go, that's impressive. And then the last one here is the Sharpie fine point, and it had a little bit of fading, a little tiny bit of bleeding, but definitely with the blue there was bleeding. So y'all know how I feel about blue, and this is why it scares me to death. But it is what it is. So, but there you go, guys. Here is your test results, and it's pretty fascinating. It wouldn't bother me too bad to use a Sharpie. I definitely wouldn't use this one. It's fading too fast. This one's really cool. But like I said, I'm gonna probably throw it in with a color catcher with this one and see what happened, and see what exactly happens with all that, to include some of this. So let's see if the blue actually bleeds a little bit. But I'll be back at you in just a little bit. So there it is with your Sharpie. Here it is with your Tulip fabric. Now remember, they're paint, they're not really fabric markers. And this one, this is your Marvie fabric marker. So these two are markers. This one's a fabric marker. This one is your Sharpie. And these are fabric paints. That was fun. That was absolutely fun. I'll be back at you in just a sec. Okay, so I'm back at you, and I went ahead and washed it one more time. Now I'll throw a picture up here so it'll be easier for you to see. But I did throw a color catcher in. Now, I don't know if it's because this was the only thing in the wash. So, and I only put one in, but as you can see, the blue and the red still bled. that rhymed. So I am, you know, whether it's because my color, because it was not enough in the wash to deal with or not, it just scares me enough to ever put it on a quilt. If you've had experience and find everything fine, just drop them in the comments. I'd love to hear it. We'd also love to hear what other marking tools you have used in the past. But as far as the results, what was very interesting, yes, the Marvie one is still fading, and it is different. The painted, the fabric painters, the Tulip fabric painters, they still are the best. And then I really don't, there is some fading with the Sharpie, and just a slight bleed on the black. It's slight though. It's just within the letters. It doesn't spread to other places. But I would use that in the fabric markers, of course, but not the red or blue Sharpie though, because that to me is a nightmare. That would scare me really bad, because it wouldn't come out. So that's the findings for marking tools with labels. Now I did tell you all that I would do this in a two-part, and the second part is actually some methods for actual labels that go on your quilt. And so we're going to discuss that next Wednesday. But I thought it was real important just to even talk about marking in case that is where you're going to go with some of your labels. Now, I'm really excited about labels. I'm a new labeler. Not enabler, labeler. But I understand, you know, for me, and y'all know me by now, and if you don't, welcome here. I'm very big on the stories inside our quilts and inside the quilters. And I love those stories. I think they add so much to the quilt just when you're hearing them and listening, and maybe it's from a family member that's telling this story, or maybe the actual quilter. And that is the part that I personally, if you ask me what is the best thing about quilting, it's the stories. Well, the labels help tell those stories. And so you can look at a label and begin to process part of that story of that quilt, and maybe even the quilter or the recipient. And so that's where this whole thing is coming from. And as Halo loves to inspire, even when it's with tools, maybe it will be something that that will inspire you to use one of these marking tools, or at least to try it for yourself, which I will put on the Marvie. I will put all three on Amazon's favorites for you in case you're looking for them, because they're not going in my shop. So I will definitely put those on Amazon favorites for you. That link is in the blog. And as a reminder, I make a very small commission off of those, but your price isn't any different. So the link for the Amazon favorites is down below in case you're interested in finding any of these products. But that's where it comes from, is the stories, and your labels help tell your stories. And I'm hoping that you get inspired. If you're not a labeler, like I said, I'm a new labeler. I've been terrible. And as somebody who is so adamant about the story, you would think I'd put a label on there. Well, I am a labeler now. So I'm hoping to give you that inspiration if you haven't done it, or maybe a different method for you if you already do. So next week, we will talk about those, and I will actually be putting a label on a couple of things. So one is a real quilt, one is a practice for sure. We will see what goes on beyond that. But if you have any questions, don't hesitate to drop them down below inside here in the comments. I always look and read and respond. I'd love to hear from you. But I will also be on Facebook Live at 3 p.m. Eastern Oh, it's not daylight time. We had an hour change. Eastern Standard Time here on the East Coast of the United States. I will be there at 3 p.m. that time to answer any questions you may have, or, to discuss your label making and your marking tools, if you do marking tools with your labels. So come join us live there on Facebook. Love to see you. But until next time, guys, may y'all continue to be inspired, productive, and joyful, and never stop making your dreams in quilting come true. Happy quilting, y'all. See you soon.